Over the past 15 years, I've driven a ton of really expensive vehicles. A lot of prototypes will run into the millions because of their rarity, but this is without a doubt the most expensive production car I have ever driven. It's the Rolls Royce Spectre. $558,000 could buy you an electric Rolls Royce Coupe just like this model. Instead of our usual comparisons, let's just talk about what $558,000 gets you and why I think this is not only the ultimate electric vehicle currently on sale in the world, it's the ultimate Rolls Royce because of that electric drivetrain. Let's start out up front. Obviously, no Rolls Royce would be complete without an enormous bonnet, also known as a hood, of course, but we gotta call it a bonnet because it's a Rolls Royce. We have the typical Rolls Royce grille up front, even though it's not doing obviously as much as in any other Rolls Royce, and it is still metal. So Rolls Royce has really stuck with an awful lot of what has kept the Rolls Royce brand distinctive over the years. Obviously the big Rolls Royce logo there, Spirit of Ecstasy right on top. But since there's a lot less cooling needed, the grates inside are actually going to spend a lot of their time closed. We have big LED headlights there, daytime running lights and turn signals on top, and this has a fantastically expensive paint job on it. It's a two-tone paint job, so the hood, your eyes aren't deceiving you, that is black. And speaking of the hood, let's go ahead and open that, going a little out of order, because under the bonnet, we find, honestly, not a lot. When I opened it, Spirit of Ecstasy goes down to help you open that hood. Under here, we find a big skid plate-like panel that covers the electric motor, of course hand-built in Goodwood, England. It comes off just like any motor or engine cover in a modern vehicle. Little rubber grommets there. Let's see what's under there. There is a 12-volt battery back there. The inverter modules for the front electric motor, obviously the air conditioning system, things like that. But you notice, for a hood this long in a modern EV, we don't have any sort of storage area there. I suppose that's logical because what would the average Rolls-Royce owner store in there? They're certainly not going to be using their own connectors and their own charge plugs when they're out and about. There's probably someone for that. One of the most unique things about the Spectre is the proportion of the vehicle. We have this incredibly long front end. Just check this out. I can barely reach halfway across the hood. This looks like it's designed for an inline 12 to live under the hood. And it's also really tall, so the hood line is really high, the roof line is really high, and that's why these 23-inch wheels don't actually look as enormous as they really are. We have a staggered tire setup here, 255 40 R23s up front, 295 35s I believe in the back. Yep, those are 295 35s in the rear. Absolutely enormous, but because the rest of the vehicle is so huge, just check out that roof line. It doesn't look quite as big sometimes, especially in photos if you're just looking at this alone. When you're standing next to it, the presence and the size of it is really obvious. Then of course we have the suicide doors, which are of course powered, so you don't have to close it yourself. You just hop in, put your foot on the brake pedal, and the door closes itself. Big window back here for the passengers in the back because this is of course a 4-seat vehicle. And then as we come around to the rear, there is an enormous amount of room between the back of the vehicle and where the rear seats are. If I stretch here, I can't even get back to where the headrests are in the back. It's just an absolutely enormous vehicle. Then back here we have the two-tone paint job continuing all the way here across the trunk lid. Rolls-Royce logo, of course, there in the middle, and a powered trunk lid, just as you'd expect, with, of course, a really deep trunk. That is just an absolutely enormous cargo area back there. Let's see what's under the cargo area load floor. If we pull that up, looks like there is some additional storage space there. And of course we have the Rolls-Royce charge cable. Let's see what that looks like. Does the Rolls-Royce charge cable look like it is worth $558,000? Well, I mean, it looks like the charge cable we find actually in a decent number of other European EVs. We have an interchangeable little voltage connector there, and let's see what the rating is. This one is rated for 40 amps. That's not bad. So go over a little over 9 kilowatts. You can do that right from the factory charge connector. Of course, I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem because, again, I suspect the average Rolls-Royce owner has, a charging concierge on staff, so they're probably never going to have to worry about such things as plugging their vehicle in. Charging happens behind door number 1 over here on this side. I'll let Nick come in for a closer look. Of course, it has a CCS charge connector here, and DC fast charging will take about 40 minutes or so in this vehicle. That is somewhat leisurely, but it is adequate, I would say. logically the likelihood of you needing to do that is pretty low in your Spectre because again, there are probably people for that, and maybe you just have your private jet hanging out, so that way instead of DC fast charging, you just stop and abandon your Rolls Royce on the side of the road, let your chauffeur pick it up and fly away. I have no idea how that would work. But let's talk about what's going on under the body. We have a 120 kilowatt hour battery pack on board. It's a really big battery, which is logical. It's part of why we have such a big proportion of vehicle, because there's a lot of battery going on under there. In real world driving terms, that's about 250 to 260 miles of real world driving, according to the specifications on the car right now. 584 horsepower is happening thanks to a twin motor setup. And of course, logically, because Rolls-Royce is owned by BMW, this borrows a lot of the innovative electric technology from the BMW lineup. And that's fantastic because it is actually more efficient than I had anticipated. Keep in mind, again, the size and the proportions of this. This is over 6,000 pounds of electric vehicle because it is absolutely enormous. Think big Mercedes or big BMW EV SUV sized vehicle. That's the kind of size we're talking about here, and big tires in the back. Now let's talk about the interior. Again, we have the suicide doors. They're obviously pretty cool. Practicality, you know, it depends on exactly the parking situation you're in. I think that this obviously does make getting in and out easier if you have mobility issues, but it also looks cool, and that's the main reason we have them. Then, of course, we have the umbrella, of course, right there in the door. Check out how long that umbrella is. It hides all the way there in the front of the vehicle. I mean, umbrella storage is probably one plausible reason for why that hood is so long. I'll let Nick go ahead and open the door on the other side so we can see what is inside. Logically, we have big, comfortable seats, and these seats have a lot of customization going on here because really the world is your oyster, and that's part of why this is so expensive. You want a unique exterior color, you want a tri-tone or a two-tone car, you can do that. You want a two-tone or a three-tone interior, as you can see, you can do that too. If you want a 1970s olive green with magenta, ivory, I don't know what this color combo is, but it is really expensive. Apparently this interior color combo is about $15,000 to have these colors combined on the interior. Again, the world is your oyster when it comes to Rolls-Royce interiors. The seats, however, are magically comfortable. They are incredibly thick and incredibly thickly bolstered. If you come in close, you can just see that these seats are also really wide. Big Rolls-Royce logo embroidered on there. The headliner has the fiber optic star scene on it. That's really cool. Let's go ahead and check out the back seats. In case you're wondering what it's like if you're the in-laws. Let's see what this is like back here. I'll go ahead and motor this other seat forward so we can see they are powered. Actually quite nice back here. A decent amount of headroom as you'd expect for something so upright in the back. Still have about an inch of headroom. Quite a bit of legroom actually, surprisingly enough too. Also, we have climate controls back here, lots of storage going on. We'll take a look at that in just a second. You know, we have the same sort of dials and controls that we have up front. The organ stoplight controls for the air vents there. And yes, even more of that green olive leather going on. It's a really comfortable place to be in the back. And we have pretty big windows back here as well. And yes, even the rear windows roll down. So just check that out. If we roll those down, they roll down in a very interesting fashion. And then we have a completely open sill on the side. That is also a really, really cool touch. We have a theme for the leather sides of the, I guess, walls there that kind of matches what's going on the ceiling. So it's not exactly a shooting star-like theme, but you can see the perforations really give that an interesting touch. And as you'd expect, everything here is just opulent to the nth degree. Moving here to the center, here's what those controls look like. Again, the fan knob for the back, the temperature dials there. We have some cup holders underneath that. And everything here has just a really solid feel to it. Even though we don't have real metals everywhere in the cabin, the plastic metals and the real metals that we do have in here combine in a very, very unifying way to really give you a sense of elegance and just cost. Like these really big, really thick air vents here. It's hard to tell, but if I ding on this, I think you can actually tell that is a solid metal piece there that's been machined to make those air vents. It's a really, really cool design. Very, very, very recognizable when you grab onto those and compare them to something else. Center armrest here pops open to reveal, you know, mid-sized storage cubby, 2 USB ports in there. In case you're wondering, yes, we do have child seat anchors back here. They're beneath these little zippered pockets, so you can unzip them and have access to your child seat anchor and then zip them up when little Jimmy goes to daycare. But for those larger family excursions, you should keep in mind that we don't have any sort of folding rear seat back. Now, say for instance, your chauffeur Nick is feeling a little bit under the weather and you need to drive while he's in the back seat. Don't worry, he'll fit back there. And what are you to do about that whole door thing over there? Because that's pretty far from him. Well, don't worry, there is a button here in the center console for that. You can just power close that door. For the driver, you can either do the same thing with the other button, or you can just put your foot on the brake pedal and then the door will come to you, because you wouldn't want to have to reach for a button if you're daily driving. Over here, that's where the start-stop button is, so definitely a little bit different than other vehicles. Remember, of course, this is a British vehicle. Well, German-British, let's be honest. Auto headlamp mode there, headlamp controls, panel dimmer, etc. Really cool, chunky toggles. And that's the big thing about this interior, is that these controls and the toggles feel very old school. So really big organ pulls, again, metal vents there. Just check out the ding that we get. No luxury vehicle would be complete without acres of wood, so of course we have acres of wood in here as well. But if you'd rather have anything else, or you have your own favorite tree in the backyard that has fallen down and you want wood made out of that tree, you know what? Rolls-Royce will do that too. Basically, if you can afford it, Rolls-Royce will do a whole lot. Up here we have that same sort of contrasting leather scheme that we found on the seats, with a darker upper section of the dash, so that way it rejects reflections, speaker grills and air vents up there at the top. This has the Rolls-Royce bespoke audio system, which is definitely a pretty pricey option. Over here we have an illuminated panel that has Spectre on it. That is not a separate display, it's just part of the dashboard. You can see the illuminated Spectre logo right there. It's a little bit difficult to see in this lighting. Down below, pretty decently sized glove compartment. You could fit a few gloves in there, but I don't know about tablet computers. And of course, the entire dashboard is all made of stitched materials, including all of the area down there around the footwell. You can see it's definitely showing some scuff marks from people getting in and out of it this week. But, again, sure, you have people for that. Moving on to the dashboard, we have the controls for the infotainment system here. These are actually touch controls, so you can see which option you've selected as you touch along that before you actually select that particular option. This software is, of course, based on BMW's iDrive, but it's been reskinned specifically for Rolls-Royce. So we have, of course, those Rolls-Royce icons there, vehicle apps there, things like the personal assistant, charging information, screens, etc. You can see vehicle settings. You can also control the spirit of ecstasy, whether you want it to be automatic or not, whether you want it to pop up and down when the vehicle goes on and off. Now below that we have the classic Rolls-Royce climate controls. These have been in Rolls-Royces for quite some time. Here's how it works. You decide whether you want the air coming out of the upper vents to be hot or cold, and the air vents out of the bottom to be hot or cold. There's no temperature listed there, because that would be gauche to have an actual temperature displayed. You can choose soft, medium, high, max for the airflow for either side. Very similar controls to the back. The rest of the controls right there, like heated, ventilated seats, etc. Two big cup holders beneath that. The big Spirit of Ecstasy controller for the infotainment system, so if you'd rather not touch it and get fingerprints all over everything, you can use that little knob. There's a small storage area right there for whatever knickknacks you might have. Again, more of that olive leather. I'm not clear whether I would choose this interior color combo, but it is definitely very distinctive, and I don't know if anybody else is going to have this particular color combo. Inside the center console, we do have a Qi wireless charging mat. So it's one of those ones that holds your phone to the side, so that way it stays out of the fray down there in the bin. Or, of course, you can use those USB-C ports there. If we move all the way back over here to the driver's side, we find a relatively simple and elegant LCD instrument cluster. Again, a lot of that sort of purpley red sort of leather going on there. Moving out to the steering wheel, we find wood accents on the outside of the wheel. It's a very, very linear size. I should say, round, but the thickness of the steering wheel is very consistent all the way around. Leather airbag cover, that classic Rolls-Royce design that we've seen for a while. Over here, this is a voice command button, but these three actually don't do anything. If I did have to pick this interior apart and choose to ditch one element, I think it actually would be this plastic chrome bar that's running right there at the bottom of the steering wheel, because it just doesn't feel quite as nice as the chrome bits like these air vents that just feel absolutely fantastic. I just keep wanting to play with those while we're in here. Of course, we do have a powered tilt telescopic steering column, and the diameter of this wheel is enormous. You're not just seeing things on camera. This is actually a pretty big round steering wheel. The controls for the drivetrain, those are back here. So We have a column shifter down there to drive. We have an enhanced braking mode with that B button. Park is on the end. And then we have unique controls over here as well. The BC button changes our trip computer on the instrument cluster there, so you can see those various trip computer settings right there changing through. You can also activate the automatic high beams. Now, despite having nearly 600 horsepower, the Rolls Royce, it's all about the experience, the smooth ride, the quiet cabin, the sort of effortless reserves of energy. I do think it's kind of cool, Nick, that over here on the instrument cluster, we don't have a tachometer, we don't have a power gauge in the typical way. It says how much power we have left in reserve. So right now we're using, you know, less than 20% power because 83% of our power is in reserve for later, like when you might want to unleash all those 600 electric ponies and do things that are very un-Rolls Royce-like, right?
Yeah, that is shocking how fast that accelerates for how heavy and large this vehicle is.
Yeah,
like when it starts moving,
6,000 pounds.
It's like a BNSF Freightliner going down the way, and it's so big and
we've been driving on this road in, you know, a whole bunch of different vehicles over this week, and this is by far the smoothest.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not even a question. Obviously, that's what you're paying for. That's that $600,000 price tag, or nearly $600,000. That's what you're going to be paying for. And obviously, you're most likely going to be riding in the back.
Oh, not this one.
Oh, sorry, not this one. There is room back there. Quite a bit of room to ride back there.
That's where Grandma and your mother-in-law sit back there. You know, if you like your mother-in-law, otherwise she's in a whole other car.
So you're saying this is the driver's Rolls Royce?
Yeah, it's the driver's Rolls. So it is, yeah, because if you're being chauffeured around, then that's what the Phantom's for. This is your weekend car that you're having fun in. It's the commuter. The Phantom's your commuter because your chauffeur is driving you to the office in Manhattan and driving you back to the Hamptons in the afternoon. This is what you take when you want to go shop for a bottle of wine.
It is an odd-looking interior in terms of colors, but if you are colorblind, it looks pretty good. I like the materials used in here.
Of course, you can have whatever color your heart desires.
Right. Yeah, they are more than happy to accommodate any sort of strange request, including a McDonald's theme with this.
Oh, is that where you're getting the McDonald's theme?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Kind of a 1970s McDonald's.
A fancy McDonald's colors.
Okay.
A different color palette.
The last Rolls Royce that I drove had a shocking blue interior. It was like Smurfette blew up inside. But of course, if you want to get gold, if you want to get beige or brown or whatever, you can do you. And that's kind of what I've always appreciated with the ultra luxury vehicles. That's one of the reasons to get them, is that they've maintained throughout their history that customizable and customize oriented manufacturer philosophy. You can't coach build anymore the way you used to, where you're like, well, I'd rather have a boxier back end. But you can certainly go to Rolls-Royce and say, I want this exact shade of blue.
Yeah, and that's kind of why they do these odd color combinations, these types of vehicles in press fleets, because it shows you. Also, I just saw a shooting star in the headliner.
Yeah, the headliner has the shooting stars, which is totally cool.
But yeah, they kind of just make it look a little odd, showing what they can do.
Color can be anything you want, which is the entire reason to get something like this. And honestly, the experience that you're having in the passenger seat is the other reason to get this, because it's about, rolling up to your friend's house in your new Rolls Royce and having them go, oh my God, what is going on here? Why is there a shooting star in the ceiling? Yeah. Impressing them with the 0 to 60 time, which is absolutely insane. While also noting that, this is super duper quiet.
Yeah. Now, how's it feel in the driver's seat? How's the steering feel? Is it a little floaty?
The steering is certainly light, but you'd expect that from a Rolls Royce. You'd expect accurate but really light steering, low effort. That's how it's been since the dawn of Rolls Royce times, right? And that's in keeping with most of the ultra luxury competition. To varying degrees, if we're talking about a Maybach, which it's going to be a lot less expensive than this, or a Bentley, which has tried to actually become more of a Rolls-Royce competitor, because Rolls-Royce and Bentley were tied together for so many decades that they had tried to develop different personalities. Rolls-Royce was the ultra luxury one, Bentley was trying to be sportier, but now we really see that, I would say, especially with similar segments, that Rolls-Royce and Bentley are really trying to be more direct competitors than in the past. So a lot of this segment, it's not really focused on driving dynamics exactly.
Yeah.
It's the ride quality, the serenity, the smoothness, etc. That's what they're after.
Yeah, I almost think I'm not even realizing how smooth this is riding, but we just went back on a road that we pulled off on just to do a quick turnaround or turn cameras off in a different vehicle during this trip. And I remembered how rough that road really was.
This is a loud road.
Yeah, this is a super loud road. It's not loud at all in
Yeah.
here, and I don't notice any of the imperfections. Now, there's like little minute things here and there.
Little float here and
Yeah,
there.
a little bit of a float, which is expected for a vehicle of this stature, but it is shocking how smooth
It is really, really quiet.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's just so much, you can just barely hear some of the gravel getting picked up by these big tires. And of course, keep in mind that we're riding on 23s and they're 35 series tires in the back. There's not a lot of tire going on back there.
No.
But it's just an effortless acceleration.
Wow.
That's all about that experience in here.
Now, you've driven V12 Rolls Royces.
Yes.
How does it compare in terms of power delivery and steering and drivability?
This is so much more instant, especially from a standstill. So if we do come to a complete stop and you're, being a hooligan in your rolls, just that initial acceleration is not only instant, it's also just so smooth because there's no gears to change, there's nothing like that going on, there's no transmission. And that's sort of the beauty with an electric car. It's also, there's no drivetrain sound. You could have the imitation Rolls Royce noise, which was on earlier. I thought it was weird. Or you can have absolutely nothing. You don't hear the pedestrian warning system. You don't hear anything, just a subtle whistle of the air coming across. The V8s and V12s, you do hear some of the rumble in the cabin from the engine, but only at full throttle, and it's only a little whisper. So they're also still really quiet.
Yeah, this being electric definitely cuts out a lot of that harshness of having a internal combustion engine, and that just overall enhances the experience. I mean, that linear feeling when you punch the accelerator, it didn't necessarily jolt us off the line. It's a little bit gradual, and then it just pulls like a freight train.
It would be uncivilized if it was too jumpy, right?
Right. And yeah, man, that acceleration once you're already moving is very impressive. I'm really impressed. Now, it's 600 horsepower, nearly 600 horsepower. So
yeah, you'd expect it, right?
That's a lot of power, but this also weighs well over 6,000 pounds.
Yes.
In fact, over 6,500 in some situations. But
it's a little bit difficult to get that exact number. Mind you, for the viewers, we've been struggling to get an exact curb weight figure for this vehicle. It's somewhere between 6,300 and 6,500 pounds-ish. If we can get an official answer from Rolls-Royce by the time this video is published, we'll just pop it on the screen. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of Rolls-Royce here moving down the road. Now, the thing for me is that when I think about a Rolls-Royce, I'm not thinking about how well does it go around a corner. I'm not thinking about 0 to 60 times. And the classic line has always been, how much power does the Rolls-Royce make? It's sufficient, because for a while they didn't actually publish horsepower numbers. Now, obviously, they do. But it's not really about the performance numbers. It's about the ride quality, the serenity, the quietness, and sort of how special it makes you feel. And I do have to say, I don't know if this makes me feel like $1 million, but it certainly makes me feel like about 600,000.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. When I have my heated seats on and my massage going through, and there's a lot of premium stuff in here, and you expect that for that price. Now, do I feel 600 grand worth? I don't know. That's a lot of money. Now, this is my first time in a Rolls Royce. I've seen Rolls Royces. I've been around them. I've never driven in one. Now, my first impressions are, and this is obviously, take this with a grain of salt. It's a big vehicle. There's a lot of luxury interior bits and exterior bits. 600 grand is hefty.
600 grand is hefty.
But I am not in that tax bracket to even start to judge or make assumptions. It's a lot of vehicle. I mean, there's a lot of premium materials in here, so I get 600 grand worth, kind of up for debate now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about this as value for the leather, value for this or that, obviously you're going to find better value in a Mercedes, an Alfa Romeo, a Maserati, a BMW, etc. But are you going to find something that is this enormous, rides like you're on a cloud? No. But that is that narrowing gap, like to get this level, this extra percentage over a Maybach, over you know, any of those other ultra high-end luxury vehicles that are not this ultra luxury, I mean, you are going to pay hundreds of thousands more to get that extra, you know, 20% more special feeling than a Maybach. But
You're also paying for the double R.
yes, you're paying for the double R, and that is unquestionably part of that you know, value there, or that price tag in a way, is that Rolls Royce logo.
That's the history.
And the spirit of ecstasy that's winging its way down the road with us.
Yeah, that is a really cool feature. That's cool to see up close. And I saw you try to grab it the other day, and it disappeared.
Yes, that's one thing
cool
we didn't cover. It does have the anti-theft function. So if you're
Yeah.
driving along, someone tries to grab her. Obviously, if they got a really good grip, who knows, they might be able to pull it off. But the casual grabber, let's put it that way. I don't know what that sounds wrong. The casual ecstasy grabber.
Yeah.
You know, the spirit of ecstasy will drop into the hood.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun feature.
And that's why the Spirit of Ecstasy is the ultimate Rolls Royce. As I said, it drives like you're floating on a cloud. You never have to visit a gas station because it's electric, and it's the quietest Rolls Royce I have ever been in. Is it worth it? You know, obviously that depends on whether you have $600,000 to spend on a new car. I will say that that is more than the 13 acres that I live on cost me. So would I ever buy one? Probably not. But you have to admit also, I have had a casual glance at used listings of Rolls Royces from the 1980s because it would be kind of fun to own one at some point in my life. The depreciation on it is probably going to be epic. So I don't know, maybe in 30 or 40 years, you might be able to snag yourself a Spectre for a lot less than $558,000. But yeah, let us know what you think about that down there in the comments section below. What do you feel about the electrification going on at ultra luxury brands like Rolls Royce? And of course, we're going to be seeing electric Bentleys as well. You know, for me, I think it makes a lot of sense because the mission at Rolls Royce has always been to have that isolated, driving like you're on a cloud feel, where you have tons of power, but you don't need to hear it. There's no such thing as a straight piped Rolls Royce from the factory. That would really be wrong. And this is the ultimate interpretation of that mission, at least for me. Let me know what you think about that, and let me know what you would spend $600,000 on if you had $600,000 to spend. Would you buy, I don't know, 3 or 4 AMGs or a couple BMW M's, or would you get yourself one Rolls Royce? Now keep in mind, of course, that as I was told by someone that is really wealthy once upon a time, this is sort of a from the mouth of babes moment, the car is not the biggest expense. The driver is what's going to cost you more in the long run than the ultra expensive Rolls Royce or Bentley. So, you know, keep that part in mind too. Let me know what you think about that down there as well. See all of you later.